Hello Guardians, my name is Searle Song, or at least that's what they call me on the forums, and today I'm here to talk to you about stats on your weapons, what they mean, and what happens when they change. Now the first perk or stat I'm going to talk about is actually two. It's impact and rate of fire, and these are linked. They don't change. Well, technically they can change. For example, on exotic weapons, you have barrel modifications that can give you more impact, and this is the only way to increase the impact on your weapon. But that's sort of deceiving. When it says more impact, it gives you an additional 2.5% damage, when aggressive ballistics gives you an extra 5% damage. This is a flat bonus, regardless of how much or how little it affects the impact bar. It gives you a flat bonus. That does not mean that each sliver is an additional 2.5%. It's just a visual indicator showing you that it's giving you some bonus. You have to do the math to figure out what the bonus is. Now, every weapon in Destiny belongs to a certain archetype. Auto rifles have 3 archetypes. Doctrine is 2 impact, 100 rate of fire. Hatchet is 8 impact, and stuff like the channel price is the 20-something impact. I believe it's 28. These 3 weapons handle completely differently and have different rates of fire. But within the archetype, all weapons will do the same damage. Before perks come into play, of course. Now, the next stat I'm going to talk about is reload. Reload just is a visual indicator of how quickly a certain type of weapon is going to reload. Let's say that when fully maxed out, this weapon will reload in 1 second. And when there's nothing in this bar, it reloads at 2 seconds. This is going to give me about a 0.8 decrease in the reload speed of the weapon, making about 1.2 since it's around 80%. That's just a way of saying that's how this weapon works. If I was to have, say, a hand cannon with, say, 80 reload, would it reload in 1 second? No. It belongs to the type of weapon and to a certain extent the archetype. Reload is really hard to quantify because it varies so much between weapons and archetypes. So it's best to leave it alone and not really figure on, or just figure that high reload bar means it's going to reload faster than you would expect for weapons of that same type. Stability in year 1 was the god stat. Everyone wanted stability. Now you don't really need that much stability anymore. Stability just affects the camera. So when I fire, having a high stability weapon just means that the camera is going to move less between shots. A low stability weapon is going to have the camera move more between shots. A good example of this would be the Raid Pulse Rifle. When I fire the Raid Pulse Rifle, the camera kicks all the way up here, but I have a nice tight grouping. Why? Because it's a low stability weapon, but the accuracy of the pulses is based on range, it's not based on stability. So despite the fact that the camera kicks up a ton, the grouping stays nice and tight. Now, on fast-firing weapons, you need more stability just to keep the weapon under control. But that's all really stability does. Range, now, however, is the god stat of Destiny, because it incorporates both aim assist, accuracy, and damage fall-off. Now, damage fall-off is very easy to quantify. Let's say I'm right here, I aim down sights, I pull the trigger, the bullet's going to land for 100% damage. I back up, 90% damage. Back up, 80% damage. The higher the range stat is, the farther back I can get from my target and still do full damage. Aim assist is slightly different. Aim assist works. When I sweep my target right over the target, it's going to slow down when it's directly over that target. That's aim assist. It works, and it works on every shooter pretty much ever put out in the last decade. Destiny has a high aim assist game, so there's going to be lots and lots of vertical stickiness. On primary weapons, however, aim Aim Assist also makes the target's hitbox, especially the precision hitbox, much bigger. This is why you can be aiming at the arm of a Cabal Phalanx and still be doing no damage. That's because the Aim Assist is trying to pull the bullet into the precision hitbox, which is covered up by the shield. The last one is accuracy. Now, accuracy, imagine a cone of fire, or a funnel coming off the barrel of my weapon. When I aim down sights, or just hip firing, where my reticle is the center of that cone. The further away from my target, the bigger the base end of that cone gets. Now, I'm going to aim at this little green thing mark here, and I'm going to switch over to my heavy machine gun, which is an inaccurate weapon. Fire off a round. It impacted pretty high up. Let's do that again. It impacted right. Despite the fact that my reticle is directly over the target, my rounds are not impacting where the reticle is placed. Why? Heavy machine guns are an inaccurate weapon. The cone of fire on them is pretty big. This is why you can be unloading at someone in a terminus at medium range and hitting nothing but air. The bullets can go pretty much anywhere within the size of that reticle that I've got right now, and even much. So as I get closer to my target, the more and more of that reticle is being covered up by the target, or is being positioned over the target. So I have a better chance of landing damage. Now, Aim Assist also has a function that works at range. So, the further away I am from my target, the less and less Aim Assist that I have. On primary weapons, this is also going to make the precision hitbox smaller and smaller. This problem of how much range do you need is further compounded by your choice of optics. Now, for example, I'm going to use the Doctrine of Passing, which has a small amount of range, and I'm using braced frame. Small bore will kick up my range by a small bit, but depending on my optic, it might not really be necessary, or even wanted. Now, the distance from here to this gate is the distance with which my bullets will land at full, or my rounds will land at full damage using the fast draw iron sights. So with this particular optic, this is the maximum distance that I have to land my bullets at full damage and have full value of aim assist. If, however, I were to switch over to small bore, this is the maximum distance that I would have. I gained literally 1 yard of distance by switching to small bore, and I have to deal with the increased recoil. So in this case, small bore, the bonus to range really isn't worth it. With the red dot sights, however, with the greater zoom factor, this is about how far I get with braced frame before my bullets start having damage fall off. And finally, with the rifle scope, this is how far I get. Now, I changed my gun is still the same. The stats haven't changed. What's changed, however, is the optics, because the rifle scope has a greater zoom on it. It adds a multiplier to my range, so allowing my aim assist and damage fall off and all that other good stuff to work at extended distances. So your range is very important, but equally important, or sometimes of greater importance, is your choice of optic. This is all the extra bonus range that I'm getting from having the rifle scope over the iron sights on this particular weapon. And that really does it. Before I go, I want to cover fusion rifles. Fusion rifles work slightly different. Impact, well, there's different classifications of impact. This particular one does, I believe, 49 damage per bolt. And the charge rate is the rate at which it charges. That's pretty simple, straightforward. Now, fusion rifles don't have a set damage Right, they shoot a certain range, and then they just magically disappear. Range affects the speed of the bolts. So a high-range fusion rifle will have the same damage fall off and the same distance before the bolts magically disappear as a low-range fusion rifle, but it will cover that distance much quicker. Stability, because a fusion rifle will always fire 7 bolts. Stability affects how much the reticle bounces between bolts. So a high stability fusion rifle is easier to keep on target than a low stability fusion rifle. And then, of course, the reload magazine, all that are the same. And so that's really it. To recap, impact and rate of fire are always together to form archetypes. Range is your aim assist damage fall off. Stability just is the amount of distance that your camera bounces between shots. And reload is how much quicker or slower you can expect that weapon to reload than different weapons of that same archetype. Fusion rifles, range is the speed of the bolt, and stability is how much the reticle jumps between bolts. And that's really it.